First of all, how iconic is this image? You see Ichabod Crane running from the headless horseman. You wonder like how did this end? Because even in the story, you're never given a definitive answer. Like, what happened to Ichabod Crane? He just disappears. You know that much. Anyone has heard of this story, and have heard of the headless horseman. Even to this day, we're still getting adaptations of this. We just got a series on Fox. I don't really care for the modern day retellings of things. I watched a little bit of it and I thought I was okay, but I'd rather stick to the classic story. And I'm gonna give you a rundown of the plot in case you haven't heard it before. This story was written by Washington Irving and first published in 1819. So yeah, it's pretty old. Uh, this guy also wrote Rip Van Winkle. If you've heard of him, the guy who fell asleep for like I don't know hundreds of years and woke up and the world around him had changed. That's his other most famous story. It's a gothic story published in a collection of 34 essays and short stories titled "The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon Gentleman," and it was written while Irving was living abroad in Birmingham, England, and he took some inspiration, I think, from well, I know he lifted some of the names of people he met. Like Ichabod Crane was an actual person he met, and Katrina Van Tassel was, and then the Revolutionary War was this tumultuous time that had just occurred like not too long before his time. 1776. Yeah, this is 1819. So you have all these stories about people that may have gone missing. You know, the horseman, the Hessian, supposedly was buried in an unmarked grave. So you could start to hear ghost stories about people. And in this town, which is a real place by the way, Sleepy Hollow. It's in I know it's in the north. It's in let's see. Shit, I always forget the geography of yeah, historical Tarrytown, New York. So they've renamed it Sleepy Hollow, but it's still Tarrytown. Yeah. Since then they've renamed it, and even their mascots are the horsemen now. uh, so the story is set in 1790 in the countryside around the Dutch settlement of Tarrytown in a secluded glen known as Sleepy Hollow. Sleepy Hollow is renowned for its ghosts and the haunting atmosphere that pervades the imaginations of its inhabitants and visitors. Some residents say this town was bewitched during the early days of the Dutch settlement, while others claim that the mysterious atmosphere was caused by an old Native American chief, the wizard of his tribe, before the country was discovered by Master Hendrik Hudson. Residents of the town are seemingly subjected to various supernatural and mysterious occurrences. They are subjected to trance-like visions and frequented by strange sights, music, and voices in the air. The inhabitants of Sleepy Hollow are fascinated by the local tales, haunted spots, and twilight superstitions on account of the mysterious occurrences and haunting atmosphere. The most infamous spectre in the Hollow and the commander-in-chief of all the powers of the air is the Headless Horseman. He is supposedly the restless ghost of a Hessian trooper whose head had been shot off by a stray cannonball during some nameless battle of the Revolution, and who rides forth to the scene of battle in nightly quest of his head. Uh, my first exposure to this character, I want to say, was an old Scooby Doo episode. The I think it's called the Headless Horseman of Halloween. Yeah, that's what it's called, the Headless Horseman of Halloween. And they encounter him, and we get this backstory about him. That's pretty much what the this entry says, and and he's got a pumpkin head on, and he takes it off. Of course, it's a guy. It's a guy dressed up because in the older Scooby Doo episodes, there was always somebody dressed up in a mask. So yeah, but he's pretending to have this pumpkin head that he can take off, and and then he's like, "I want a head." That shit creeped me out as a kid. No way I was watching The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, because I would see previews of that and I'd be like, "Oh no." They look creepy as hell. And I'd eventually see it in middle school, and yeah, I'd just be freaked out by that. I'd be like, I'm never watching that again. And then in '99 we got Tim Burton's version, which I just loved. Even though it was scary, I just loved the story, and it's loosely based off the story, but you get a lot of the references from the story. You get the all the horses' names are the same, like the horseman's horse is called Daredevil, and Ichabod's is called Gunpowder, and then like the characters are still all the same. You got Brom who's vying for the affections of Katrina, just like Ichabod is. And so the legend itself, the story, relates the tale of Ichabod Crane, a lean, lanky, and extremely superstitious schoolmaster from Connecticut. So already you're thinking, okay, he might be easily influenced by the stories he's going to hear in this hollow. Throughout his stay at Sleepy Hollow, Crane is able to make himself both useful and agreeable to the families that he lodges with. He occasionally assists with light farm work, helping to make hay, mend fences, caring for numerous farm animals, and cutting firewood. So we're getting like a day in the life kind of situation at first, and then it starts to get a little weird. Besides his more dominant role as the schoolmaster, Ichabod Crane also assists the various mothers of the town by helping to take care of their young children, taking on a more gentle and ingratiating role. Crane is also quite popular among the women of the town for his education and his talent for carrying the whole budget of local gossip, which makes him a welcome sight within female circles. As a firm believer in witchcraft and the like, which, yeah, that's, Tim Burton was pretty faithful to this interpretation. Crane has an unequaled appetite for the marvelous, which is only increased by his stay in the spellbound region of Sleepy Hollow. A source of fearful pleasure for Crane is to visit the old Dutch wives and listen to their marvelous tales of ghosts and goblins, haunted locations, and the tales of the headless horseman, or the galloping Hessian of the Hollow, as they sometimes call him. Throughout the story, Ichabod Crane competes with Abraham Brom Bones Van Brunt, the town rowdy and local hero, for the hand of 18-year-old Katrina Van Tassel. At least she was of age. A lot of times the girls in these stories are less than 18. Uh, the daughter and sole child of wealthy farmer Baltus Van Tassel. Ichabod Crane, a Yankee and an outsider, sees marriage to Katrina as a means of procuring Van Tassel's extravagant wealth. Brom, unable to force Ichabod into a physical showdown to settle things, plays a series of pranks on the superstitious schoolmaster, which we see in the movie, too. The tension among the three continues for some time and is soon brought to a head, pun intended. On a placid autumn night, the ambitious Crane attends a harvest party at the Van Tassel's homestead. He dances, partakes in the feast, and listens to ghostly legends told by Brom and the locals, but his true aim is to propose to Katrina after the guests leave. His intentions, however, are ill-fated, as he fails to secure Katrina's hand. Following his rejected suit, Ichabod rides home on his temperamental plow horse Gunpowder, heavy-hearted and crestfallen, through the woods between Van Tassel's farmstead and the farmhouse in Sleepy Hollow, where he is quartered at the time. As he passes several purportedly haunted spots, his active imagination is engorged by the ghost stories told at Baltus's harvest party. After nervously passing a lightning-stricken tulip tree purportedly haunted by the ghost of British spy Major Andre, Ichabod encounters a cloaked rider at an intersection in a menacing swamp. Unsettled by his fellow traveler's eerie sighs and silence, the teacher is horrified to discover that his companion's head is not on his shoulders, but on his saddle. In a frenzied race to the bridge adjacent to the old Dutch burying ground, where the Hessian is said to vanish, according to rule, in a flash of fire and brimstone before crossing it, Ichabod rides for his life, desperately goading Gunpowder down the hollow. I get chills just reading this synopsis. This story, I don't know why, It just gives me chills. However, while Crane and Gunpowder are able to cross the bridge ahead of the ghoul, Ichabod turns back in horror to see the monster rear his horse and hurl his severed head directly at him with a fierce motion. We see this in the animated movie, and we see this in the live action movie. The missile strikes his head and sends him tumbling headlong into the dust from his horse. The next morning, Gunpowder is found eating the grass at his master's gate, but Ichabod has mysteriously disappeared from the area, leaving Katrina to later marry Brom Bones, who was said to look exceedingly knowing whenever the story of Ichabod was related. So he knows what happened to Ichabod, but do we know exactly what what his part in it was? Like can we discern that? Indeed, the only relics of the schoolmaster's flight are his discarded hat, Gunpowder's trampled saddle, and a mysterious shattered pumpkin. Although the true nature of both the Headless Horseman and Ichabod's disappearance that night are left open to interpretation, the story implies that the horseman was really Brom, an extremely agile rider, in disguise. Which we see in the movie, we see Brom disguised as the Headless Horseman throw the the pumpkin at Ichabod's face, and then, well, of course, in the movie, Brom is killed by the Headless Horseman, but none of this is in the story though. Tim Burton really expanded on the story. I think in a good way. I really liked it. So it suggests that Brom, yeah, you disguised himself as the headless horseman, threw a jack o' lantern at Crane's face, and Crane actually survived the fall from Gunpowder and immediately fled Sleepy Hollow in horror, never to return but to prosper elsewhere. Or the other possibility is he was killed by Brom, which may be unlikely since Brom was said to have more mischief than ill will in his composition. So Brom wasn't a killer by any indication. So it was either it was either something supernatural took Ichabod Crane, or Brom was involved somehow. Got him to leave by pranking him. Those are the possibilities we're left with. Irving's narrator. Okay, the narrator, I'm not sure is supposed to be reliable or not. The narrator concludes the story, however, by stating that the old Dutch wives continued to promote the belief that Ichabod was spirited away by supernatural means, and a legend develops around his disappearance and sightings of his melancholy spirit. In a postscript of the story, sometimes unused in certain editions, I don't know why. I mean, you gotta. I don't get why people will cut out a portion of somebody's story. Just leave the whole thing in. It's what it was intended, was to leave it in. The narrator states the circumstances in which he heard the story from an old gentleman at a corporation meeting at the ancient city of Manhattos, which I'm sure later became Manhattan, who didn't believe one half of it himself. So, okay, yeah, the postscript is kind of writing it off as just it's balderdash. It's codswallop. But some of the best stories are complete embellishments of what may have actually occurred, and in this case, this was all made up. We know this was all made up, but it's still for some reason just caught on. It just caught on the it caught in the zeitgeist, and people like took to it. I think it's partly because we want to believe in the supernatural. We want to believe in the extraordinary, even if it means something that's coming after us, something supernatural that's coming after us. It's a wonderful it's a wonderful idea that I don't know. It catches the imagination. I think that's why I like the movie so much, because there's so much that Tim Burton added to it that captured my imagination, like the witch and the whole storyline with the Van Tassels and the other families being intertwined. There's this whole conspiracy aspect, and like the horseman actually turns out to be like somebody that's just caught in the middle of it all. I thought that was really neat, and this story just has always stuck with me, and this character's always stuck with me. And you see it, you see it in movies and shows. You see the name Sleepy Hollow being used, and they name streets after it, they name parks after it, all kinds of things, cities. It's just one of those stories that's going to endure, I think, forever, just because it's such a rich story, and it's I don't know if it's like maybe 60 pages, something like that. It's less than that. It's a short story, but there was so much there that Washington Irving had to work with, in his mind. That it's just it's always gonna be around. And I hope you enjoyed this story. If you haven't read it yet, go read it. I know I gave all the spoilers, but I think you should read it for yourself, and try to, I don't know, try to take your own interpretation to heart. Maybe not, you don't have to listen to me, but just see for yourself. And for sure, watch all the adaptations of it. Even maybe the new one, the newest one. I haven't seen all of it, but for what I saw, it looked pretty neat. It's just a story that will always be retold, I think. Just like Robin Hood, just like King Arthur. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.